you could tell who the bandits were because they wore a mask. Today, everybody wears a mask, so we need new tools and methods to tell who the bad guys are. Uh, Almost every day we hear stories about all kinds of scams and identity thefts and hacking of databases and other criminal activity involving the internet. Uh, we always keep warning shippers and brokers and carriers and to know who they are dealing with and exercise due diligence before doing business with any new customers or service providers. Our good friend Cynthia uh, Hetherington is the founder and president of the Hetherington Group, a cyber investigations consulting and training firm. And Cynthia shares her experiences and expertise as a speaker at events and conferences all across the United States and has frequently participated in the Council's annual conferences. Cynthia is not only a leading expert in the field, but you'll find her to be a delightful and entertaining speaker. Please welcome Cynthia Hetherington.
George, thank you so much for a wonderful, warm introduction, and thanks to TransSolutions for sponsoring today's event, and of course to TLC. I'm just snapping over to our shared screen here so you all could see my slide deck up there now. I'm also going to just sneak over and see if I could get the chat box going on the side here so that if there's any questions, guys, just write them in that chat box. I've got a little screen open on the side here, and I hope you don't mind if I glance to my left because that's where my slides are. But we'll get going on due diligence using social media searches. So welcome everyone. I am Cynthia Hetherington. As George has mentioned, I've had a lovely opportunity to present in front of the TLC audience in the past, and I have some friends and what I call friends and family within the organization, and we certainly go back many years in this world. We're all working very hard from home, but we're all working very hard to keep our clients safe, our products secure, transportation still moving forward. And I am no less the advocate and the worker bee, because right now what my team has been working with is a brother organization to TLC and helping make sure that the vaccine, as it's from creation, actually from inception, from intellectual property all the way to getting into the arms of individuals, goes smoothly without cargo theft, without threats against intellectual property, without dark web or deep web anti-vaxxers, all sorts of threats and challenges that are coming at us we're discovering, and we're learning as we go. What's real phenomenal for me is that as soon as I was asked to help, and we're volunteering on this project, mind you, because I didn't have enough sense to start ringing up prices, but the truth of it is that if the vaccine gets into everybody as soon as possible, world gets back to order and we get to go back to business as normal, and that's everyone's goal. But as soon as I got asked, can you listen to the internet? And that's exactly what we're doing. Can you listen to the internet and tell us when cargo theft is going to happen? Can you tell us when there's a threat from an organized crime group or any type of matter or dark web type? Nobody knows what to expect, Cynthia. If you see something, could you say something? Which is what we would always do. In 25 years in this industry, I've never held back information I thought would benefit somebody else as far as their security or safety was concerned. And we jumped on board. And then I lecture at a lot of your conferences, but I don't know cargo lingo. I didn't understand the words of dealing with pharmaceutical threats to packaging, shipping, and receiving of these vessels. So I reached out. I reached out to members of TLC. I reached out to members of that association. Hey, everybody knows John Tabor. Not only do I know John Tabor, he lives one town away from me. I called John. I reached out to all those great folks, and everybody stepped up. Nobody stopped and said, hey, I'm not getting paid for that, or this is my silo, or, I don't have time for you. Everyone stepped up, So when George says, hey, would you do one of these presentations? I was like, of course I'll step up because you guys helped me and this is a way I get back to you. So the slide that's up on the screen now is what we've done in the past, what my company's known for, and all of where we specialize in information. But I like that more recent story and how I relate to you because I think that's really quite relevant. But we have written many books. We've got newsletters, conferences, very much in the space of open source intelligence, and have been sharing that information for many years. Today, what I want to talk about is using cost-based as well as free resources for scanning the internet to capture information when it occurs so that it's not a surprise for you. Today, and God bless my hosts, they have the patience of a mother with a teething child, let me tell you, because I showed up half a second before our presentation started. And I'm sure the great organizers were not very happy about that, but my company right now is completely deluged with everything involving the presidential inauguration, the vaccine rollout, multiple state capitals, and all the companies that have recently pulled out of sponsorship towards different committees, different political groups. They've all now become a target on the internet. First and foremost, every angry grandma out there is sending threatening messages, all the way up to actual militant groups and really well-gunned, irresponsible people who would cause harm. So our team is really, really working at its last tether, trying to make sure, what is an overview slide is what we're doing here. And one of the things that in a calmer time, I would ask you, I would go through some questions like, hey, how do you feel about your social media and open source plan? Do you guys have your stuff together? Do you have your do you have your eyes on the internet? Are you watching? And before I answer that question, I do see a chat box question that came up, which is brilliant. Yes, I will be sharing these slides. I absolutely will be sending these slides over to George and his team afterwards, so they will distribute all of these for everyone. So we'll go back to this question. How are you? How are you feeling about what you're doing in social media? And the answer is it's not confident. It should never be confident. And one of my calls yesterday was with a sports organization is going through quite a change right now, and the corporate security director said, "Oh yeah, we've got that done. We're totally fine. We know exactly what we're doing. We have an operations guy that watches it." I said, "You said singular. You said you have a operations guy. Anytime you do anything in a singular means you do not have a redundancy in place. It also means that somebody could walk away from a desk while messages are going across. I'm not confident in that, and I don't think anyone should ever feel confident." So that's not good. Also, the last answer is, what monitoring program? That's also awful, because that means you haven't even thought about what you're going to do if a threat comes across. And I think we learned from the Capitol breach what it means when you ignore good intelligence, what it means when you are handed reports and documents and dialogue. Now, I cannot speak to the words that are being used. I, of course, have opinions, but the words being used, like the optics of a situation, or what it means to start reading into content where it's disenfranchisement with the First Amendment rights, or whether it's just good intel. It's not my pay grade. My job is to find, capture, and verify information as we come across the internet. Needless to say, when you miss it, you miss it. You miss it really badly. So what we like is a middle of the road. We want you to feel like you're aware that you need a program in place, that you might even be better than most organizations and their institutions, but you can always improve upon that. With the internet always changing, nimbleness is the most important thing. And corporate security directors fail at that because it's frankly not in their job description to sit there and understand every last movement of social media. They, we couldn't be more timely on this presentation. George really pulled me at the right time. So in the last week, 5 social media exchanges, 5 social media platforms asked the president to disembark. And then the one that would have kept him on there, which is Parler, lost its platform. Amazon decided to stop supporting Parler. And so Parler is now, they'll probably be back up in the next week, but now they're gone. Well, here's the problem when you start shutting the door on all the bad guys. They don't stop being bad. They don't stop their terroristic threats and their nasty grams. They just go to another place. And your job as a security director is to know where the heck they went. Well, you need to answer for that, because someone's going to ask you, where are all the bad guys now? And you're not going to be able to know that if you haven't hired a person in place, or you don't have a firm in place that monitors the internet for these types of translations, this type of news. So let's take this out of the government body. Let's bring this back towards the cargo, to trucking, to other organizations like that. Where do your delivery people hang out? Where do your long haul truckers chit chat? Where do they share their messages? Where do they hide their messages? Are they using encrypted platforms? Are they on Telegram? Are they in Parler? Are they in a place where you're not even aware of? You're going to need to know. So one of the ways that we do is we start with a plan. You sit down, you have a plan. And I hope one of the first things you have in your plan is, we need to get someone in-house to do this. Is your plan, do you have in-house analysts so that you don't have to be the expert on social media yourself? You just have to know you hired them and that they're serving your needs. Do you sub all the work out, which is, again, it's the same thing. It's just paying for it out of your house. Sometimes companies use public relations and communications people to fulfill this need. And when done properly, that doesn't fail. But frankly, if you don't capture it, and they're not, because their number one priority is not security, their number one priority is to see how many times a brand gets mentioned, that becomes something. Or you just really don't think you need a monitoring plan. You're pretty good without it. So this is the last part here, where first of all, I take the word monitoring out. I mean, it's a function, it's a task, it's a verb, but it also comes across as being optically offensive, because it sounds like we're staring down at a group of people and we're not giving them room to self-express on their social media platforms. However, for a company to be aware of where its brand, how safe its people are, and what people are saying about their reputation is very important. So we call it awareness monitoring or awareness. I'm great with most of these answers, with the exception of, we don't need a monitoring program. Not having some sort of social media monitoring program for a larger establishment or a very well-positioned small establishment is irresponsible. You have no idea what people are saying about you. You don't have your eyes on the board. And when you are made aware of something, it's too late. It's the buck is passed. You are now mitigating problems, not handling and creating solutions. So we want to make sure that the first responders have access of this, that you could track records for compliance and management with fraud and reputation, that you've got some good ideas in place. I did sneak in a last question. Well, what do we watch? What are we watching? What are we looking for? What am I monitoring for? And gee, well, again, brand management. So Coca-Cola monitors for Coca-Cola and Coke Enterprises, maybe the president of the company. But you want to watch on everything. You want to keep your eye on all of your lines, all of your building locations, and anything that might be in front of your particular assembly of shareholders quickly. So, we like to address the first item first. If you're not sure what you need to monitor for, then, you need to sit down and assess, what are your assets. That's basically it. You monitor your assets. For companies that have so many cameras on all of your entrances and exits, and you got tracking devices on all of your vehicles, and you have employees punch clocking in for all their time, and your computers all have serial numbers attached to them, you are already doing a pretty rich surveillance program. All we're telling you is that you need to also monitor for information, because all crime now and all terrorism is going to occur cyber. It's going to hurt you most in cyber. So if you have no surveillance system in place for this, you are going to be out of luck. So my company does this for others. We only care about three things: life, property, and reputation. I'm only concerned with making sure that your executives and whatever we're monitoring for is not at dire need of law enforcement or military intervention or security team. I have a client that wrote me yesterday, the executive protection team for this client. She's a very well-known celebrity personality. She's an abrasive personality. She raises a lot of hackles on a lot of people. And we had done some work for her in the past. And through her executive protection team, she was very actively micromanaging us in our work process to the point of being a real annoying pain in the neck. But because of everything going on today, she will be one of the first targets out there that people will try to attack or go after. And so she wants to get that program turned back on. People are threatening me. I wrote the EP guy yesterday and I said, I don't care. I don't care if people call her fat, if they say her kids are ugly, or if she's an untalented moose on stage. We don't care. I only care that someone is threatening her family, reporting her home address, leaking her personal identifying information, or doing things that are an actual threat to her. If you can agree to that, we will pick her back up. I mean, it's just basically taking this well-known, really, you know, I don't know how to describe these people, these celebrities, the Instagram people. Nobody says no to them, and I said no, and then they immediately not only gave me money, but gave me double the money to do it, because that's how dangerous this world is. So let's get into creating something that you guys could create. And I have the full arsenal of tools here, but not everything needs to have a price tag attached to it. I just need you to be in the right mindset when we start, so that when we get into a monitoring plan, you could build something that is reasonable for both your bandwidth, how much time you have to spend on it, and the budget that you could spend. Because frankly, we're still coming out of COVID, and the money is not flowing. Although the government might be printing money, it's not flowing to everybody equally. So here's your monitoring plan. Have one. Have something. Because monitoring and awareness, given a proper breath of fresh air and a proactive security team, you could go ahead and sit down quietly and put down all those keywords that identify your company, and create great assessments of what and where you are located. But the usual course of business is that, I don't know, someone breaches your capital, and you're a senator who boards airplanes without executive protection teams. Now all of a sudden you have bodyguards surrounding you. People are besmirching your homes with animal excrement, and anyone is looking for you to walk in and out of your nail salon. That's not a good time to create a monitoring plan. It can be done. It's a red team action. But what you really want to do is you want to take the time when it's not an emergency to create something that you could flow into and not blow dollars and expectations so quickly. So we're going to look at the fee, the free, and what we need to do. What are we going to start looking at? Well, these are the things we need to monitor. What do I have my eyes on? All these different pieces of information here. I'm looking at social media sites, obviously. It's the whole point of the class is social media. But beyond social media, I'm also looking in the dark web, where it comes up to onion sites, paste bin sites, the Chans, 4chan, 8chan, very popular, Telegram, very popular. These are all places where both terrorists, militant groups, animal rights activists, all activists, they all hang out in these message boards and they exchange information, best practices, and tips. When you realize that the anti-vaxxers are standing right next to the Virginia militia, and oh, by the way, the pagans or the Mongols are also there. The Mongols are also there. They're all in social media. Nobody sees each other and starts making those instantaneous judgments. Everybody's anonymous. So they're sharing their best practices. They don't even like each other in real world, but they're using the best cyber practices. I will also see in a more formal side people who are still a threat to us, publishing and newsletters and magazines. Not everything that comes out with a headline and a tagline, ridiculous article titled by, resilient journalist on January 13th, 2021. Looks like a newspaper article because that's what newspaper articles look like today. Must be real because look, a journalist wrote it. There's a lot of fake news out there. And not only is it fake for the sense of ridiculous people have nothing better to do but post crazy stories online, but there are nation states who are deliberately playing the algorithm game on social media and in open source intelligence platforms. and they're publishing stories that read, smell, and behave very similar to what our, you know, long-standing newspapers, everything from the Pink Paper to the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Forbes, papers that we all grew up with, that we're familiar with. These look, feel, and taste just like real news. So we accept the stories because we don't have a way to discern fake from real. Unfortunately, most of the news that's coming in that's false or fraudulent, deliberately misleading, and is now incredible fuel for conspiracy theorists, is all coming from Russia. So all that stuff becomes a problem. And all I need to do is take one trip down a highway, see the letters on the side of a cargo, of a trailer, and just start creating stuff out there, making it look, feel, and smell real. And if you're not monitoring for that, you know, why would I do that? Well, maybe the guy cut me off. Maybe he didn't let me get off the off-ramp. You know, this is New Jersey I'm calling you from. You know, nobody's nice on the highways. If I want to get all angry at you, I could ruin your entire business practice because I could just start creating all kinds of fraudulent information. If you're not monitoring for it and you're not mitigating, you're in trouble. So what else are we going to do? We're going to do the due diligence to getting started in our plan. And the due diligence really involves knowing what you don't know. So you got to get in there and you got to understand where are the threats. Sit down and say, how many places are we vulnerable and what should we be looking at? How do we monitor for this? What kind of due diligence should we be doing in person? How much have we done in the past? What are the specific keywords and hashtags involved in this? We just, again, a sports enterprise wants to set up a monitoring program, and he says, well, we're going to send you our keywords. And I said, yes, by all means, because I don't know, you know, the difference between this type of play and that type of play, and if it means anything. Plus, many of their teams in their sports franchise are made up of young men who come from very urban backgrounds, and there's a whole language involved in that. The team identified to me that there's gang affiliations that we need to monitor for. So I will take all that language and we will incorporate it into our normal course of language, which is kill, die, shoot, burn, terrorize, you know, the FBI naughty word list. And then once all of those words collate together, we can actually create a process where we can start building our searches. We start building our lexicon. Now the keywords can be captured just for the sake of learning this properly, because we're in our planning stage. There are geo keywords, global keywords, and then plain old keywords. The geo keywords are everything that help us narrow down to a location. So I use example of Chicago. Chicago is also known as the Windy City, Chi-Town. Within Chicago, there are small villages or towns. There's the Loop. There's you know, the upper, the lower, the south side. You know, there's just all parts of Chicago. LA, New York. I mean, does anybody know if it's New York or Manhattan? You know, it's like there's so many different ways of looking at that. So you want to get all those words, even if it sounds ridiculous. You're like, oh, I guess we also call it this. I guess we also call it that. And I also want you to think of the audience of who you'll be investigating this from. If it's a group of, I don't know, regular everyday folks, like people like my age, we're probably not going to get down into the urban street language as deeply as a young person who's very familiar with living amongst and around, you know, the people who live in the middle of Chicago in a certain section. Once we get those areas wrapped up, we have those done as a logistical area or geospot. Global keywords are now going to identify everything associated to that area, again, that are key to what I'm looking at. So in Chicago, there's a very famous building called Aon for a company that's located there. The White Sox are there. The Cubs are there. McCormick Plaza is a hashtag. These are all very specific to both location as well as brand, And in fact, like, is the Sears Tower still the Sears Tower? You're like, well, wait a minute. It says that hasn't been the Sears Tower. Gosh, that other company bought them years ago, and then they did all those improvements, so they got that glass floor, and you know, like your brain goes there. But there's still old timers are going to call it the Sears Tower. It's definitely that. In New Jersey, we have a stadium where our teams play. You know, you call them the New York Giants and the New York Jets, but frankly, they're New Jersey teams because they play in New Jersey. And I still say that they're right across from the Brendan Byrne Arena. It hasn't been called the Brendan Byrne Arena in probably like 6 different names. It was Continental Arena, and then Continental went away, and who knows what it is now. I haven't been out of my house in a year, so I'm not sure what's going on out there. But we have language that does help us describe very specific locations. And then the last are those keywords that we need: kill, die, bomb, shoot, terrorism. We always have these word lists floating around. There's always an InfraGard chapter that's willing to help out with that as well, and they can help you build those keywords. Once I get those, we want to start thinking about our queries, combining them. And this is about as technical as this whole presentation gets. So this is when you bring your analysts in, you're like, sit down, you need to learn this. This is when we start saying we need to know about where it's Chicago and Aon. I mentioned ABC company, but Aon is a company in Chicago. Aon has either the second or third tallest building in every single city, every major city. Aon has buildings in Chicago, New York, LA, Toronto. I mean, they're all over the place, these buildings. And they're never the tallest building. I don't believe. I can't remember if they're the tallest building any, but they're always very close to being the tallest building. Well, if I'm looking for threats against Aon, but I know that the threat is only resolved around the Chicago area and it's not all over the world, I'm not just going to put in Aon buildings. I'm going to say Aon and Chicago, which sounds incredibly simplistic. I never said that this was hard. It just needs to be done. That's what I'm saying. So Chicago and Aon. And then you'll probably start adding the words bomb, kill, die, threat, shoot. And these are just, depending on what you're using, the packages that kind of come in. You just check a box and it's like the naughty word list gets pulled in. Then this helps us capture any information specific to that area. It helps us narrow down to that very specific area so I can get smarter searches locally. What about getting the capture? Now, frankly, a lot of you, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be, tooling along, working at your desk one day, and the next thing you know, someone's going to call you up and say, hey, go to this Facebook account, open this up, look at this problem. And there you are staring down a problem. You want to make sure you capture that when you see it. That's my first word of advice in your plan. Always train your analyst or the team that's working on this to capture it immediately. Take a screenshot of what you see, because that post could be taken down in a hot second. We're seeing this very much right now with the Capitol breach, because there are many people who have very strong opinions. They're posting them, in a fit of passion. They're posting them, and then I think, a little bit of reason comes into the back of their worm brain, and it says, "Ooh, your boss could see that," and then they're taking them down. If you're out there trying to capture who the threat is to your organization or who the internal leaks are, the problems are, you want to make sure you get that on the front end, because otherwise you're doing subpoenas or court orders to these platforms. It takes forever. It's a sticky issue. In this case, I'm making sure that I'm telling you that you capture everything as you can see it. You can use the control print screen. You can use capture software like Hunchly, or Adobe Acrobat is amazing. I love Adobe. There's Camtasia. There's just dozens of software tools out there that'll do this. But you can also just control print screen and print this into a Word doc. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. It just has to be on your desktop so that when you walk away from your desk, if they choose to delete it, you will have still captured it. You will spend a great deal of time otherwise calling me up afterwards going, I know you told me I should have gotten it, Dem, but the secretary in the boss's office saw it yesterday, called me up this morning. I went to go recreate it. It's not there anymore. Can you go back and get it? And we're always going to tell you we'll try. So the clock starts ticking immediately, because we'll try to find it on someone else's page for you. But the truth of it is 90% of the time we won't actually come up with anything, and you'll get a bill in the end anyway, where all you had to do was just do a control print screen and it would have been saved to your desktop. This is planning in action. This is saving money, working on budget, and keeping you sane in the process. What kind of resources do I have for you? I have lots of resources. I'm going to start with the free ones because everybody loves free. Excuse me. I am drinking as much coffee as I can get into my little body as possible. but keeping me propped up. Guys, don't forget, you could put notes in the chat box while we're going here. I do have my eye on that. Okay, free sources. I love free sources, not just for the fact that they don't cost money. I like them because they supplement the work that I'm doing with the fee-based tools. And when I get to a product like Google, does it do that? It doesn't have the bells and whistles. It doesn't capture all the same information. It doesn't deliver it in a platform, but it's doing it all for free. Here's why Google is so amazing. It is the largest scale technology architecture in the world. I mean, it's right up there with Amazon's AWS platform and Axion. So we have this enormous scale delivery system, and that could be allocated for doing very small searches. So this is like using all of one of your trucking companies or one of your transportation and logistics companies to handle a very small problem. You're really throwing all of your heaviest armor at it, and it's resilient. And if one side of it breaks down, the other side picks it up. So it is scalable, it is diverse, it is constantly communicative, and it is amazingly fast. The alert system, and this is the web address that you have to go through, will allow me to take all of my alerts on a topic and just have them emailed to me. And just want to run a sample search here for you. Let me just pull up a Google search. All right, so you see you got Google in there, right? So that's normal Google. But if I say google.com/alerts, I'm now in the alert feature. And you can have those emails sent to your regular email. You could set up a Gmail account. But if I care about whatever vaccine I'm looking at today, you know, Moderna's vaccine, the mRNA, whatever number, and I want to watch just that, I could put that in here. Now I want to look for a combination of words. So I say vaccine, space, asterisk, Moderna. Let me pick that screen up a bit for you. Okay, because I can't see it. I used to wear these glasses because they used to make me look cute. Now I'm just blind. So, okay, I want to see every time the words vaccine and Moderna come up. You might even say, well, you know, enough about the vaccine. How about threatening language like explosion, space, asterisk, Moderna? What the asterisk is going to do in this service is say anytime the word explosion and Moderna are within 15 words of each other, they will pop a search. It's called proximity searching. So the word explosion needs to be within 15 words of Moderna. Now, where am I looking for this? Under the options button, I'm just going to go right to it. The automatic choice means everything. But what it's looking at is news, blogs, web, video, which is Vimeo and YouTube, books, discussions. Now, you want discussions most definitely because discussions is the dark web, and finance. But just pick automatic and it gets all these. You're good. All right. So I've got explosion, asterisk, Moderna. And now I want to know, you know, I'm choosing automatic. This, how often is up to you. I'm kind of an as it happens girls. That's otherwise, why would we call it an alerting system? And then I will change only the best results to all results because I don't think Google knows what the best results are. Language, region are all specific to what you want. I usually keep these open and then I say, create an alert. And because I'm logged in, it did just create an alert that went to my email account and I will get alerts. Moderna does not know. I'm going to just delete that because I'm going to get exploded on in a second. Moderna doesn't know that I created this alert. So perhaps you're interested in a competitor and you think your competitor is moving into the Northwest. You know, they're, I don't know, middle of the country, East Coast company, but all of a sudden they start shifting their focus towards Spokane. Maybe they're having meetings in Seattle. They're over in Idaho. You know, you're like, oh, what's going on over there? Company name, asterisk, you know, and then the word Northwest, and then the word, you know, Idaho, Spokane, all those things. Now, what you can't do, because it's a free tool, is you can't say Spokane. Of course, it helps if you spell it right. Or, you know, Seattle, or, you can't do that here. This is not LexisNexis. You have to set up individually all those requests separately. Still worth the time, and you will get emails sent to you that tell you what and when any matches for those words happen. Now, you know what's cool? You're done with your search, you've gotten enough alerts, you're well aware your alert setup was awful and you're just getting everything on the word Spokane that's coming in. Delete it. At the bottom of every email you get from Google, there's going to be an edit or delete button, and you can control that. So it's not going to overwhelm you. They're not going to tattle on you. This is a real resource. One thing you always want to monitor for in the free source here, where your company name is being made and where your name is being mentioned. You absolutely want to know. I just found out that there's a group called the Hetherington Group distributing the COVID vaccine out of, I don't know, Freehold. And the Hetherington Group is distributing out of Freehold. So I clicked on my Google alert that popped that up. And in Freehold, England, Freehold, England, there's a pharmaceutical place called the Hetherington Group. And we're giving out vaccines. So just a name match, but it met all the criteria, but it popped up. There's Twitter monitoring that we could be looking at, and the two sites that we recommend on top are Twitonomy and TweetDeck, but then Mention Map is also good. Let me just put this in bold. I seem to have missed that, so you guys could see it when you get these slides. Again, you will get these slides sent to you when we're done with the conclusion of our show. So these are free resources, and anything that just has a name like Mention Map, it's a .com. If it's otherwise, we would mention it to you. So you can start doing your monitoring very similar to the Google alerts, but just Twitter. Just Twitter, you could capture that. Reddit is another matching board, and Reddit's a lot of where the Capitol protesters are moving over to now, because Reddit is a pretty open Chan board right now. But also F5bot is very good for following for free alerts and getting captures on anything dealing with whatever searches you're looking at. F5bot is also really good for hacker news. So we start getting a little closer into the dark web searches that were here. But any one of these sites, if you go to Track Reddit or you go to F5bot, you'll see that you could just follow through on the instructions and you'll get your matches there. Another site is Social Alert, and it's hashtags, it's accounts, it's YouTube channels. I think that this is really important for monitoring for alerts, because I had kind of had an all hands meeting with some CSOs earlier this week. One of the articles we're working on right now is the evolution of social media and the current protester, and we want to identify what makes what makes a person protest is not my realm. That's based on thousands of years or hundreds of years of threat assessment specialists who could tell you how a disenfranchised society will get angry and will finally stand up for what they feel are their own rights. Go for it. What makes that person wear horns on his head, face paint, bare-chested, and carrying, the spear of Thor as he walks through the Capitol? What does that make? Why that? And again, the threat assessment people are well-heeled to answer these questions. My thought was Instagram. Because if you have 5 angry guys rushing at your building and they all have the same chin beards and they're all wearing the same hoodie sweatshirts and they all look alike, well, one of them wants to get called out for being a little more glamorous than the other, because Instagram tells us we need to. So the social media is what's going to pull out and extract some people over others. I don't know what you do with that, but I do know that you have a very easy way of tracking these people for doing it. And those are the people who have YouTube channels. Those are the people who will have a profile where they're not, there is no discretion anymore. Many of you are my age or close enough to it where you remember discretion was a thing, and you didn't go out there and talk about your politics to other people. You didn't share that type of information. It was kind of something you kept close to breast because it was your thoughts and opinions, and you treasured them. You didn't want to have to explain them to everybody. But that is not what society is today. Society is now very demanding, incredibly transparent, and makes open source look like a public library. So these are the search tools like Social Alert that allow us to get in there and pull all that data really quickly. It used to be difficult being an online investigator. I used to have to work really hard, and now I just sit there and catalog reports and index file and put stuff in clients' hands. The other resource that's out there, and this is a really powerful tool, is Go Cerebrum. It is the ES ArcSys data. I'm just going to grab this link here for you. I want to show you this. This allows us to take a global footprint of what's going on in the world from news explorers and other really heavy duty databases. So if we want to look at global, and again, just zoom in here, global protests and riot dashboard, I went to the, I'm just telling you, I clicked on the link, I went to the site. I'm not logged in, I'm not paying for anything. But what they help us do is they help us capture quite a bit of information going on in real time as to what's happening. So right now, different parts of the world, like I could look at just US Northcom. It's a military model. As close to a military model as possible. So on January 8th, members of 5 different groups began a sit-in protest in Puducherry, Utah against the governor. We have all types of, we have rape victims in Tennessee. We've got kidnapping of a journalist's son. We've got U.S. Capitol building blowback. There's a report as of 1:36 p.m. Clicking on the riots, clipping on the articles. There's no image associated to that. So, and this is why I'm looking at my screen, because it's too big of an image to get. But you can start digging through here. If you have an operations center, I always take up one of my screens with ARC data, because ARC data is very, very mappy, very global. It allows me to come in here and really see something from a bigger perspective. And then you can always come in and look for, the fragile state index when you want to impress a client. You say, this is what's going on in, Afghanistan right now, or Albania, and all of the different data, political, social, economic cohesion. So excellent alert tool, another free tool for you. The IBM News Explorer is another one that we really enjoy using. And I'm just going to show you that one. These are a little out of the purview of just looking for your brand, your company, or your executive names. In this case, I can add your company name in here because I can look for, hold on, let me scoot in, recent news about. So if I'm looking at recent news about, and right now what's up there is current events. So if I want to say, let me just scroll down. Obviously, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, very big. Tesla, very big. Why is Tesla big? Tesla plus Donald Trump. And it's starting to pull up any stories. What's hot, what's not, who's saying on what area. Uber drivers. I'm not really getting good matches here. Okay, here we go. Here's the Tesla and our link analysis. And it's all the other companies attached to it. Alibaba, Tweety, Microsoft. Here's Microsoft in this corner. And finding connections between these two companies and what's being said. This is based on news stories. So as people are publishing content in the media and you're trying to find a connection between the two. For those of you that have companies that are big enough where you fall under CFIUS or Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or other compliance requirements, this is an excellent resource. I mean, sheesh. I want to find out news about Tesla, or just how about Elon Musk and Donald Trump? Are there any connections between those two men? And if there are, do we need to be concerned about it? That's where the analysts come in and start actually reading and reviewing those connections. And this was just an incredible free resource that we really jumped into. We could do this with our fee-based databases like LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters, Dialog. But the truth of it is that it's very it's very complicated when you have to read through every story and then highlight the words yourself, where a resource like this can just start mapping out everything that you need between two entities you're trying to do it. And I'm not sure I could zoom in, but the stats in the corner, there's 67 articles, 68 companies, 68 organizations, and 189 people. Those are all connected to those two entities that I just searched on. It's a lot of fun. It's really explosive in what it can find. Our last search for our slide was on Antifa and all the connections that we were drawing from Antifa to extraneous stories and outlines that were out there. From there, I'm back to cargo theft. And that is me talking about places where your cargo ends up if you've been thieved. if someone is taking your cargo, and we actually just did a search for one of our clients. He's going to start moving some products, and of course he needed it yesterday. He's like, I need a survey. I need all the results that tell me. And I know George was incredibly helpful on this. We reached out to him. We reached out again to many of you. He said, how many armed robberies are there on the side of a road where cargo is just stolen right out of the, by gunpoint? The kinds of things we see on TV. And from what we read, all the articles, everything you guys provided us, not much. It's a lot of times it's the truck driver who walks away from his vehicle for 5 minutes because he needs to use the restroom, or he's grabbing lunch, or his locks aren't in place, or the cargo sitting on the side of the road because it got taken off of the vessel and now it's being shipped, attached to the tractor trailer. There's a lot of it that way. But you still are losing stuff. That's why we have a TLC. So when we do lose stuff, one of the places I like to go to is Search Tempest to find where your stuff is. This, let me be crystal clear, is free. You go to Search Tempest, you plug in whatever it is that just walked off the back of your truck. It could be anything from Dove body soap to, it could be Dove body soap. It could be the vaccine. It could be human trafficking. Whatever's in these vehicles that shouldn't be moving around outside of there and it goes missing, you could plug in under the what. This is what we've lost. We've lost Dove body soap. Where did you lose it from? And the little where button, you just put in the zip code of the area that you last saw that vehicle. And then you stop, because you guys are the experts here. Like, hey, if somebody were to steal tires, because we're a tire manufacturer, and somebody stole a whole cargo full of our tires, would they travel 1,000 miles for stolen tires? I mean, would that be worth it? Wouldn't be putting mileage on your tires just to get to new tires? Are they maybe very hybrid tires or fancy tires? I've really picked a topic I know nothing about. I am not kidding. I thought tires were still cylinders filled with air. I was like, well, you still put air in them. Don't they just have a big, sleeve in there like a bike tire? But sure enough, some of them are very expensive hybrid, vehicle performance tires. And yeah, someone would go thousands of miles just to get their hands on them for half the price. So that would go up there. But in some cases, these are the same tires that you could get very cheaply locally. So no one's going to move them more than 200 miles or 100 miles. You can narrow down your search by that search parameter, and then actually get where we find it. So good question. Somebody's asking, and I'm going to show you by example, because someone's saying, hey, how do we use this to track missing cargo, missing trailers, and trends? So let's go there. Let's do this. Okay, searchtempest.com. Instead of me just talking it, let's show you. This is the website. I am not logged in. I am not paying for this. I am just looking at the screen. Now, the question coming through, do you have any specific tips for shippers? Shippers, transportation, I don't care who you are. I care about what you're moving in this example. What are you moving? I am moving Dove body soap. And it's probably because the people who manufacture these products call me up and say, hey, I just noticed that you know, somebody called in and said one of our trailers was on the side of the road and it's missing all this Dove body soap. So I know that they're going to start selling it in different markets, the black market, the dark markets, and the social media markets. This is going to track that. I need to say, oh, it's going to be in 90210. You know, that's where it was stolen from. And Dove body soap would probably move about 75 miles. You know, anyone's guess. Hey, if you want to do the whole world, you could do the whole world. But within 75 miles, when I do a search for just this particular product, it's going to look at, please notice, Craigslist, eBay, and Amazon. These three marketplaces are being examined, and particularly Craigslist is the one I'm looking at. So within 75 miles of 90210 are 4 cities: Los Angeles, Ventura County, Orange County, and the Inland Empire. And if I click on any one of those sites, it'll tell me, and apparently Dove body soap also pops up surfboards, but it'll tell me anything I come close to matching my product. And then I just set up alerts for, oh, because of the word body soap, it's surfboards. Okay, so it's a bad search. I would have a better search. But I'm doing this for free, so I would run the search and that's not so good. Let's put something else in here that would give me my search parameters better, and I would be able to find wherever my product is being stolen. We've probably found stolen goods using this tool, probably at least 20 times in the last 2 years. We get success on this. Now, it's not because I sit here and do the search. It's because once the search is run, I could go ahead and set up an alert on this. Just got to scroll to the bottom of it all. I could set up an alert on this, and it will email me when it finds my match. It'll send over a match for it. So that becomes a real tool that I could use this on. Someone is asking a question back on IBM. Can we be confident that the news shown on IBM Watson News are legit? Can fake news be shown and skew those results? That's an excellent question. With IBM Watson, I haven't seen any fake news profiles. I took off the IBM thing. I haven't seen any fake news sites, but I am going to recommend proper news sources in about 3 clicks. So you'll have a balance of it, of where you could see it. IBM Watson wouldn't tend to go towards fake news sites, but I will say that I will even question the veracity of, what's that? And it's not fair, but I would say like Huffington Post is kind of like a new to the game kind of news publication. That's where my threshold is. It's like, is Huffington Post a legitimate news and journalist entry, or is it just another social media aggrandizement tool? I go back to very traditional print literature for my standards. To finish up on here, once again, searchtempest.com, put in whatever you're looking for, however far you think it's coming from a particular zip code. Run your search, and then once your search is run, we got to just kind of hit that button again. You can then ask it to, and I'm not seeing the button on here because the screen's too large, but you can have it set up alerts so that this gets fed to your email account. So we're working in that area where we can really get some really good tools here. Moving on, there are other board readers and pieces I want to introduce you to. And now we're getting back, that was just a little bit on cargo security, and I'll just actually put it in the room for, see if I could get it for everybody. All panelists and attendees. Here's another one. I'm just going to pop in there, cloud.org. Very similar to Search Tempest for locating stolen goods on everything but the 3 that we just looked at. Once I get past looking for my stolen goods, I'm now looking at other places where your names and your companies are being mentioned. Board Reader is good for forums and chat rooms. Another free tool. We have an example here where we search for gun, and we see that gun was being mentioned in the last 3 months several thousand times, and we're going to get great results on that. And for your sake, you're going to put in your brand name, your company. You guys are getting the theme here. It's a lot of the same thing on different chat rooms and different board readers, because your offenders are going to be talking in all of these different places. So we got to go back and forth. All right. All that said and done, I love the free tools. They're really great for when I have somebody who can't support themselves. They don't have the budget. They have a very rare and occasional need, and this will be just enough. But the truth of it is, the honest to God truth of it is we use all those free tools, but we use them as secondary tools to the fee-based resources. Because when push comes to shove, and my analysts are working 50-hour work weeks, and we're billing you for every last minute we're working on, nobody's going to sit there and ask us to do something cheaply if we're going to miss something. So we're using the pro tools, the professional resources, which cost money. You know, good things are seldom cheap and cheap things are seldom good. It is none but the best of the aggregation tools that we find in the fee-based world. So in the fee-based world, you have a responsible party, the vendor you're paying for, to pull up and deliver data to your desktop. That's going to give me incredible resources. They're going to vet it. They're going to answer the phone if they're stuck. They're going to get that data to me. So we're going to be aggregating from the social networks, traditional and dark web content. What's also really good to know about these resources that are out there that, again, you're paying dollars for, if the platforms change, like Polar just went down. I don't think Polar is back up yet. I haven't had a chance to check, but Polar is still down. At one point, one of these companies called me up and said, hey, guess what? We got Polar on there. Oh, and we've added Telegram. And we're so excited. We've got Vic and a couple foreign entities up there as well. And we can monitor your words in there. And that's great. And we added to it. But when they lose them and when they lose access to these products and these sources, or the APIs go down, or an organization like Facebook, you know, scratches his own back and rebuilds the entire platform overnight, nobody even notices, but we see it, then we get in there and we come back to the vendors and we say, how are you fixing this? Now, I'm not worried about recreating Python scripts and doing this on my end. I have another group of technologists who I'm paying to take care of this, to take care of it. And it gets done. It gets done because our job is not to sit there and build the software. It's to be expert users of it. And that's what I need you guys to be, because you're experts in cargo. You're experts in transportation and logistics. I don't need you to be software developers. I need you to depend on software that works for you. So the big crux of what that software is doing is it's filtering down an ocean, not a fire hose, an ocean of data. And you know why I say not a fire hose? Because a fire hose delivers in a unidirectional way. A fire hose pushes everything in one direction. Social media is not singular direction. Social media doesn't abide by any law of pressure. Social media is an ocean. It's just out there and it's all over the place. And sometimes the water that's in the Atlantic Ocean flows over and becomes part of the Aegean, part of the Pacific Ocean. And then it rolls over to the Aegean. And now it's part of the Red Sea. And that water is just going to go wherever it feels like, just like social media. And you know what your job is? You got to find the same single darn drop of water twice in that ocean. Twice. Because you're like, oh, I heard that this guy's about to attack the Capitol. That's a drop of water. Now I have 6 analysts upstairs trying to figure out where the heck that drop of water went. The tools, the fee-based tools, they help us move a lot of that mass out of the way. They find out just a couple of puddles that we examine closely to see if we could find that one single drop again. Not only do we find it, we capture it, we record it, we do analysis on it, report it, we put a report together, we send it to a client, we send them an invoice, they pay us money, we roll on to the next drop of water. It becomes a process. This should not be something that's fantastical. This should be something that's commonly integrated into your best practices, security, and compliance management. So these tools will help us do that. They're as close to real-time alerting as they can be with keyword searching. You need to, when you examine these tools, ask them who is real-time and who isn't. This used to be something that you got when you were talking about looking at stock market tickers. You had a 20-minute delay on most websites in the early 90s if you were following the stocks. But if you had the ticker tape, you had real time. I mean, literally had a ticker tape. You had real time alerting and could make investments much faster than your colleagues who are looking at the web thinking they were all cool. They were getting late information. Well, ask your vendors who's giving you real and who isn't. Know that geolocation is something that you're going to get sold on. Oh, well, we could do geophilia like mapping on your particular location. No, they can't. They could get close, and sometimes they could get lucky, but nobody can offer you true geolocation on social media posts. It is not possible. All of the APIs on all of the platforms have stripped it out. Twitter was the last one to pull it out. So no one is taking your cell phone and coordinating it specifically by latitude and longitude to any posts anymore. It's there. And if you were to subpoena or send a court order to the social media platform and ask for it, they have it, but they're stripping it out in what can be used in the redigested forms, which is what we have access to. So don't let them sell you on that. That's dog number one. Next, we have object and image recognition, which is amazing. We are now playing facial recognition software and geo mapping tools within some of these vendors that are out there. They're doing social network analytics, link analysis. There's a lot of pieces that are going on. And this is the mention of Twitter removing its geotagging. Best practices in this place, don't anticipate specialist tools cover new and oddball platforms without properly testing them prior. What I'm looking at when I say something like Polar, I was teaching last week? National White Collar Crime Center. So I had a lot of military and law enforcement on the call, and they were incredibly interested in Polar. And even I was like, wait, which one's Polar? And I had to go find them, figure out what they did, check our tools to see if they were covering them, run some sample searches. I had to have an analyst sit down and actually do the search against it to make sure it was going to cover it, to see that I was going to get back what I needed. What's really good and bad about paying for these services, the good thing is that they do take feedback. You know, the bad thing is that you have to give them feedback. But the good news is that if you find something, a hole in their software or a problem with their platform, and you write them, they will fix that in no time, because they are not going to be held accountable for giving bad intelligence. We do like to look at, when possible, we will do manual searches against some of the social media sites while we're also doing the alert services that we have access to. In some instances, we always do manual searches on Facebook, because Facebook has no inroads for any of these tools to reach into, with the exception of Voyager. And very few companies actually have access to Voyager. So we see lots and lots of growth in that area, and we'll see quite a bit of change in transaction. And then you always can have that conversation with the vendors to what they have and don't have. So I just want to name the sources, and then we're going to go into examples. And before I jump into pictures of examples, I want to take a moment to look at some of the chat questions. But this is the list of sites and services that are out there for us. Dark Owl, Life Raft, Voyager, everyone from Nexus Explorer to iThreat, Cision. There's so many tools in this market. Just in my house alone, I have Dark Owl, Life Raft, Voyager, Scope Now, EchoSec, Beacon, Data Miner, Talkwater, Babel Street, iThreat, Factiva, Nexus ProQuest, and we're getting Nexus Explorer. We're actually bringing on Babel Street now. Data Miner we're probably getting rid of. But we have all of these resources in-house just to be so duplicitous, because we have a whole team that are looking at them. When I go over and we start looking at pictures of maps, I want to take a look at the questions that were coming in. How are cybersecurity tools helping us in cargo thefts? Someone asked, how are these tools helping us in cargo theft? They're helping you first, if you're using them properly, they're helping you identify the threat before it happens. If I have a known crime organization, like there's certain demographics of people who are well known for stealing in certain parts of the country. I was talking to the cargo guy out of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, as well as some of the folks down in the Port of Miami, and then the cargo folks here in the Port of New York, New Jersey. And I was asking him, like, where do you see your biggest influx of theft? How does it happen? What does it look like? What kind of language? How did they say it? Did they say, I'm about to steal cargo? Or are they like, you know, we're gonna riff a truck or something. I don't know. They have lingo. I don't speak this lingo. I do when I get into the world, but otherwise I'm like, you stole something. It's just not going to fly in a search. Well, when we are able to put that language into our searches and we see people talking about doing something negative in an area, that stops cargo theft. Another thing is cargo disruption. When we see that protests are going to be popping up in a particular part of the country, within the United States specifically, we can get in touch with the cargo delivery service and say, you're going to see down this lane of traffic, they're shutting down the George Washington Bridge. There's going to be a protest. Nothing's getting anywhere. Interestingly enough, and this is well reported, when the vaccine's very first trip went out, Boyle's transportation was shipping it out, Andrew Boyle's company, it was like a big deal. It was coming out of Indiana. It was going around Lake Erie in the middle of a blizzard. I said, did anyone not check the weather? It was like the one really well watched. There was a news crew that followed the transfer of that one package of Moderna from here to there. And it got stuck. The truck got stuck in a blizzard. Sometimes it's not theft. Sometimes it's just any type of news that could be disruption. I see what tools would be best to vet due diligence and selection of qualified licensed insured cargo theft for motor carriers, flight brokers, and drivers. All of these tools are good for vetting because all these tools can go from being just online monitoring resources to investigative resources. The difference between intelligence and investigations, or in this case, as you're calling it, due diligence, is intelligence is half the price. Because when I find something with intelligence, I find out about it before it occurs. I have data that says this is a threat, this is a concern, this is something we need to sit down and discuss before we get engaged. Investigations and the due diligence process normally will occur after we've gotten engaged, and therefore is going to cost 3 times the price because now we have to go back and explain everything that happened in our process. And that's what I've done with a lot of these tools. It's just, for us, it's just a report writing style. If you've already hired them, we're looking at them. If you're going to hire them, we're going to look at them. It's how we write the report for you that helps. The screen I have in front of you is just one of the products. Now, I don't want to sell you products because I'm not making anything off of that. But, I just want to explain to you the kinds of things that we're using. So in this case, we're using Navigator by LifeRaft. And we've just picked up the Washington area, and we're just doing a quick search on all the posts that are coming in there. So we see Instagram, Flickr, and Twitter posts popping up. What they're allowing us to do is geofence in that area because there are going to be certain contained words that are popping up in that location that they're going to narrow down to. And then we're able to create live or historic information based on that. While I'm looking at the data, I could then also go over to another source, but very similar products, guys. I'll tell you the truth here. I have a big retriever that just ponied up next to me, needs to be pet. Sorry. Distracted by dogs, teaching at home. Okay, so EchoSec is also a resource that is a big favorite of mine. And we search for the word decapitate. Just threw the word out there, and we see Veek, we see Twitter, we see YouTube, Reddit. We see a lot of posts out there that allow us to look for the word decapitate. So that could be globally. Now I could say I want to narrow it down by their pre-built filters, which is really helpful, and just say I'm looking for things with positive or negative sentiment. I'm not sure where the word decapitate in a positive sense could be used, but we certainly can narrow it down by negative posts. So EchoSec also gives me a good bandwidth here. And if I have a minute at the end, I'll actually open one of these up. EchoSec's Beacon product, same company, different tool, is digging into dark web and breaches. And this becomes really key here because this is the Tor network, ZeroNet, and OpenBazaar. We're definitely looking at Discord, which is one I forgot to mention, a very media site right now for people who are disenfranchised. All of the social sites like Pastebins, 2Channels, Acons. This is where we do things like vaccine and gun, and we could see people in their posts. I want you to know one important piece here, and I see a question that also came in I'm going to answer. These posts have to be in the open web. If someone is doing private communication, encrypted communication, or peer-to-peer communication, me and George have a Snapchat conversation. It's just between the two of us. It's not a group Snapchat. We're not open up to anything, or we're using one of the encrypted platforms. Then it's going to sit there, and these tools are not going to penetrate past that. That's why this is such a permissible space for us to do our jobs, because this is open source intelligence for due diligence. So I'm going to come back to that question a little earlier. Cynthia, what about using this for due diligence? There's a sports team right now who's selecting a new coach, and they got all these candidates. And I'm technically doing due diligence on those candidates in social media. Their names are going to go into all these hoppers, and I'm going to look to see if they've said anything. First of all, if they're expressing themselves in ways that is not in line with the mission statement of the organization, or basically anything foul, naughty, or to be frowned upon, sexist, terroristic, or inhumane. And I'm also going to look to see if anyone's saying anything about them. Maybe they're being accused of something. Maybe this person never uses social media, because I think these coaches are pretty busy coaching. But maybe there's a whole litany of angry, I don't know, short people. I'm a short person, I could call it, who hate this guy because he favors tall people. And we've seen that. We've seen accusations of bodies of people, like the Me Too movement, like the recent civic unrest in the country, where there's organizations saying, well, yeah, that guy came out and screened. He's like, yes, we love everybody in our company. And then there's someone on social media that works in the company going, that's BS. That guy, I never got a promotion because he skipped it over, and I have all the proof. And they're putting that out there in social media. So that's part of our due diligence process, is the companies you're getting in bed with or the people you're hiring. You want to search for them on all these platforms to make sure that it comes through. The dark web is definitely a place you need to look for that, because that's where people who really feel threatened about having their voices heard will go out and speak the loudest. One of our gals here on the chat board said, what are the obligations do we have to law enforcement when we run against potentially dangerous information? Which is an amazing question, because we come across stuff all the time. And I go by the mantra, if you see something, say something. So I do that, but I say something to the client first, because my obligation is to the client first and foremost. Most of my clients are former or very aligned to the law enforcement community. And it's not like we're just getting angry memes, or someone is just, again, your client's fat, their kids are ugly, and there's no talent there. It's not that type of post. If I see, I'd like to decapitate that woman, she is a threat to something, then I'll talk to the client and we'll have a conversation about what do you think our obligation there is. I will unabashedly always ask for forgiveness before I ask for permission when I feel that anything, again, let's go back to that very first slide. My job is to protect life, property, and reputation. And we've had this where we were watching a protest against an organization happening. And in the midst of that protest, the mobsters went from protesting on this square and started bashing in a community synagogue, started, just tearing up the synagogue, decimating property. And we were capturing everything that we were seeing because we were witnesses to the event. And I contacted who did I talk to? The Jewish Federation. And I said, if anybody needs the content that we collected during the course of our work, we observed this event going on. We have permission from our client to share what we have, but we aren't going to tell you who our client is because it has nothing to do with what happened on you. Here you go. And I don't know what they do with the data, frankly. I didn't follow up. So, maybe they did something with it. Maybe they just refortressed their own security. Speaking of dark web and things that we say, I would be on the phone with the police all day long if I was reporting everything I saw on the dark web. So in focus of using dark web searches, I will absolutely tell you do need to monitor in this space, and you need to have awareness, but you don't need to be as observant. Frankly, and this is going to sound crazy for me to say it, you don't need to be as observant here as you do in social media. The scale of dark web posts to social media is like 1 to 1,000. Now that one can be very dangerous, versus the 1,000, which is a volume. The one can be very dangerous. So if you were to do quarterly audits of what's being said to you, or better yet, monthly risk assessment of your brand, your company, your executives, and your locations in the dark web, you'd probably get a good monitoring service going there. I would not recommend that you bring this in-house unless you have a dedicated dark web searcher. The fallout of using dark web searches in-house for unexperienced professionals, people who are used to doing open source intelligence searching but aren't used to using the dark web, can be very damaging to them. And I would recommend you use the products, either Beacon or Dark Owl or any of the other products that are out there, because they really have an incredible way of filtering through a lot of garbage to get to your company name, your brand name. In this case, I did a search on a National Guard, and I got about 4,000 hits on National Guard. That's not just our National Guard, it's National Guards all over the world. But, I'm able to filter down them by the Americas, and then just maybe by Washington, Roanoke, wherever part of the country I want to look at. Cyber Tool Belt. Now, this is really also handy, and I like that the person was asking me to focus on the due diligence side before, because Cyber Tool Belt is absolutely an investigative resource where if I have an entity that comes to me and says, I want to be your new transportation partner, we can take, if nothing else, you take their website domain and run it through Cyber Tool Belt and find out who's connected to the site, when it was registered, how long the site's been there, if it's sitting in a Ukrainian server, or if it's on a server in the US or nearby, if they've anonymized everything, why? He's like, we're completely anonymized. And I always say, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? A regular company website wouldn't have to anonymize their profile. But if you're hiding stuff, that counts for me. You need to, your limitations are, and this is just a couple slides on narrowing down, just indexing is one of my analysts to help me with my slides, because she was doing the same show as I was. And she likes to just, Facebook has problems, Instagram, they all have limitations. I got to tell you, they all have places where we can get cut up. And that's why you need a specialist who sits there and does this. You can get an analyst trained up very quickly in doing open source searching for you. This becomes a nice project. If you have GSOCs, it should definitely be one or two of your analysts in-house should be doing this. But they'll get into names and hashtags. They'll be able to figure out location by language, tagging, and other things. You're definitely going to want to look for upcoming events and any type of shareholder meetings and whatnot in that area. So there's lots of good data in there. The sources that we want to get into and look at specifically, this is a list I gave you earlier of the sources that we are trending in. These are the sites that are really hot. Power is going to come back and it's going to be amazing. One of our business partners out there, Scope Now, actually wrote up a really good guide for Polar, and I've done up a couple of mine on my website about how to investigate and look in those particular places. But these are the sites you want to look at. This is the angry site boards. Okay, if you want to skip half of everything we talked about, but you just want to log into all of these particular sites, these are the sites, these are the platforms you look at. If your company is being mentioned on Discord or 4chan, you got a problem. That's a quick way of assessing it. Deep and aware. Again, back to a little bit more of the how-to. In the 5 W's, you want to make sure that you're checking who, what, where, when, why, all of those good things, so that you have it in your reporting, everything that you've captured. You want to be able to verify the information. Someone asked earlier, what about the news feeds that you're getting on IBM Watson? Is it verified? I love that you're thinking in that direction. I'd have to stop and go back and double check. I'd have to make sure, are these real resources? Are these mediocre resources? Or are these fraudulent resources? So I won't take it out of my report, but I will call something hearsay if I can't verify it. And hearsay is anything that shows up in social media. So hearsay is all the murmurings, I heard George is going to host a big holiday party this year, versus I went to the TLC website and it says there's going to be a big holiday party this year. And then finally, evidence, I went to the Christmas party, I went to the holiday party this year, and I have pictures of me at the holiday party. So all of those different pieces for intelligence and hearsay come into place. Just another tip sheet. Rachel snuck this on me. I'm like, thank you, Rachel. You know, we only had an hour and a half today, but we have and we're winding down, and that's okay. When you're looking for people or groups of interest, always look for them by username. The next and I believe final slide is actually the best username searches you could do. The connections, it's not so much about, wow, we found George or we found Cynthia's social media profile on the internet. You want to see who the connections are between these entities. That's always what it seems like it comes down to in the end, is who's connected to whom. And what does that mean in the bigger picture? You know, you're getting judged by your associations, and social media is certainly a place where a lot of that occurs. So we want to make sure we're really clear on that. We want to see if they're mentioning each other in check marks or boxes work. Sure, Cynthia and George are connected in LinkedIn, but do they endorse each other? Have they shared any communications with each other? Is there anything going on between the two of them? You know, what's the behavior that we can look at? Are they endorsing each other? That's also false endorsements or fraudulent endorsements are very popular in moving forward. The big kid tools like Voyager Analytics, Scope Now, and Fivecast, these products that are out there that'll charge you for this, just to give you a sense of how quickly all that would happen with the product. If one of those characters from the Capitol breach gets identified, and we're like, hey, that guy looks familiar. And we take, actually, Voyager has a facial system, a facial recognition system. So if we run it through them and we identify who the guy is, and then we take it and we take his profile and we say, okay, who is this man? And we drop them into their analytical tool. They pull up all of his social media profiles, and then they pull up all of his contacts within there. And they make quick analysis between all of them. And within an hour, usually within a half an hour, I will see that he is connected to associates back in Russia. He's associated contacts in China, in the Ukraine, in Spokane. He's got connections in all these different locations. And then we start digging deeper on those connections. The collections work is where we see our real asset for our analysts being done. The collections work is where the tools do all the heavy lifting. And then the analyst can do the analytical work of, what does this mean for us? What is the fallout? So the tips for the groups and all in that and interest are really handy in that fashion. This is another final free tool for you. Actually, it's a final 3 tools for you where you can take that person's nickname and run them through any one of these sites, and it'll tell you if they have YouTube, Parler, Twitter, Pinterest, Pandora accounts. That'll all pop up in there, and then you'll find what you're looking at. So it all comes down to my end notes and my, good luck to the neighborhood story, where I start putting my shoes back on and start singing happy songs like I'm Mrs. Rogers. Please have a monitoring plan put in place. If you do not have a monitoring plan, please address that. Just leave a sheet of paper in your procedurals manual and say, this is something we need to get to in 2021. I'm going to send you these notes. You're going to have this slide deck, and you're more than welcome to take whatever you can out of the slide deck to help to build your own monitoring plan. Know that once you get into the weeds and you start looking at these things, that certain platforms have adjustments that you have to make, and knowing what those platforms represent and how these vendors could best attack them for you is going to be really key in how we get to it. And then collection is only the first phase. What we want to spend with our intelligence analysts is their time on actually not the collection, but actually the retrieval and then sorting through all that data to get to what our answers are. It's a lot of data in a short period of time, but the final bit of data is my email address, which is screaming on the screen at you right now, so that you can go out there and ask me questions, read our blogs, and follow up with us. Leave that there for just a hot second while I go ahead. I'm going to turn my slides off and pass the microphone back to my lovely hosts. And again, thank you very much for your time and attention today.